Another week, another big money deal for a big name wide receiver. The most interesting trades we wish we could see on NFL draft night, and a snake draft that's going to cause massive controversy. We've got all that and more. I'm Jason Fitz, and it is time for Zero Blitz. He's Frank Schwab. I'm Jason Fitz. Frankie and the Fitz? I don't know. Schwabi and Fitz? Is it the Fitz? Is it Fitz? We're still workshopping all of it. But most importantly, it's Zero Blitz. Frank, I got to start with the most important thing because I just noticed this. You're wearing headphones with a little microphone on them. And as you leaned forward to press record today, the microphone made it look like you have a neck tat. And I just thought, Frank Schwab with a neck tat is something I need in my life, brother. Like, I don't know if you've ever thought of and it looked like a cursive writing. So it was like one of those things where like you tattooed your mom's name on your neck or something. Like, I don't know if you've ever thought about it, but it gave you a level of street cred I didn't even know you needed.
We are, this is a blowout because you are at probably 35 tats, right?
Yeah.
I've seen your arms. Yeah.
I'm tatted up.
I'm at zero. I'm one of the rare Americans left that has zero tattoos. I just have no desire. Like why sit there for a few hours? Why go through the pain? No, not gonna. I don't have Madison Square Garden tattooed on my forearm like you do. Let's
for what it's worth, though. Like every time I start a tattoo, my first thought is, why in the hell did I do this? Like, and it's the commitment to it. Like everybody asks how many I have. I don't really know how to count them because my right arm is a complete sleeve that took 2 sessions, and my left arm is 2 half sleeves. So like, I don't know. Does that mean because it's so much work, do I have a bunch of tattoos, or do I really only have like 3 and they just happen to be abnormally large? I don't know. And now like I really want to start getting my legs done, Frank. But like, here's the thing. I learned this. I shave my arms every day. I put the low on my arms because you got to make sure
you shave your arms every day?
Everybody like reacts
every day. Okay. You wake up and shave your arms out. Like let's get this forearm here. Like what?
Yeah.
Wow.
Okay. So sometimes I skip a day, but like I shave my arms more than I shave my face. Yeah. Like, and when I first got my first tattoo, I shaved only one arm because the advice I got was the color would look bigger or better if you shave your arms. And so I was only shaving one arm, and nobody ever notices that. So then I'd start to tell my buddies that have tattoos, I shave my arms, and they're like, holy hell, you're right. You do shave your arms. So like I shave my arms, and then I have this this mint lotion here that comes from Bath & Body, although they no longer make it. I don't think. I'm lucky I have cases of it. And so like every day there's a little shave and then a little low. And that's how you keep all the colors so bright on it.
Wow. I learn more about you every episode we do, Fitz.
But this is the hard part. Like, I know
I won't be able to not notice that when we hang out. Like every time I'm going to look at your arms, be like, did he shave today? Like, that's what I'm going to do. Like, how do you not?
The answer is yes. The problem is I didn't realize till after I got the tats that laser hair removal would have worked, but you can't do that after the tattoo because it alters the color. So now I really want to go down my legs. But I'm thinking before I do that, I'm not going to shave my arms and my legs. Like, so I'm going to have to get laser hair removal on my legs. And I feel like then I probably got to do both legs so that I don't have one laser hair, like, bald leg while I'm getting work on it. And then the other one's all like, middle-aged white dude, weird hair. Like, so, these are the things I contemplate. Like, I'm thinking about getting laser hair removal all summer. What does that say about me?
There's a lot. You are dealing with a lot of stuff over there, my man. Yes, I guess saying tattoo-free has really cleared my mind for stuff like NFL football trades that we're going to concoct in a couple minutes here.
Yeah, the beauty of all of this is that at the end of the day, now every time you look at me, you're going to think about how much hair I have and where it is in my body. So it feels like I've won. You know who else has won? Devonta Smith that wins 3-year, $75 million extension. Let's take a look at some of the news and notes around the league, my friend. And another big money deal. It matches A.J. Brown in average annual yearly value. Only Tyreek, Devontae, and Cooper Kupp make more per season. I feel all of this, and this is just a reminder of why this year's draft is so important. Like, what we're going to do in this show later is give out some trades, but realistically, there are 2 classes now to me in wide receiver. There is the epic, oh my God, I've got the guy. And when you've got that guy, he's going to cost $25 million a year. Everybody else is about to become some level of middle class and upper middle class. And middle and upper middle class is going to be easily replaceable by the draft. That's why I think the number right now, according to Vegas, is 6.5 wide receivers taken in the first round. Because ultimately, you got to understand as a team that if you've got that one guy, he's going to cost you a ton of money. That means everybody else is either going to have to be getting to that echelon, or they're going to be completely replaceable in a draft system that every year gives us great wide receivers.
Yeah, and that's why I had some sticker shock with Devontae, because he's not the guy. A.J. Brown's the guy. And I like Devonta Smith, and I'm all for all players getting paid. Hey, great for him. Congratulations. He's a very, very good player since the Alabama days when he won Heisman, obviously. But carrying 2 receivers making $25 million a year is a lot. I was surprised he was in this tier. I can't lie. Like, this is, again, very good player. Having 2 guys like this is a remarkable asset when you're an NFL team. But you're already paying AJ. Now you're paying Devonta Smith. The cap runs out at some point, and so I was a little shocked that he was in that tier. But good for him. Good for the Eagles. He is a heck of a player. Really good pick by them. Early first round when they picked him. It's all worked out pretty well. It just seemed like a lot, but that's what receivers are going for these days. And when you talk about 6.5, I'll take the over, because now the whole rush is not to just get 1 good receiver, it's to get 2, or even 3, like the Bengals have had the past few years or whatnot. And having the 2 studs, it's costly, but that's what it does. The other offshoot of this is, if Devonta gets 25, what does Justin Jefferson make? I'm sure Justin Jefferson's agent was like, whoa, 25 for Devonta Smith. Let's call the Vikings today. The price of the brick's gone up. Let's put it that way. I think that if Devontae's worth 25, what's Justin Jefferson worth? And the answer is probably way more than 30 at this point.
What's interesting to me is you just mentioned the Bengals. Is this not a case study for the Bengals on what the hell to do? Because the Bengals are now paying Burrow, as we all know. Jamar Chase is going to get paid, and T. Higgins, right? So you look at those 3, and what we've thought this entire time is this is not sustainable. You can't pay Higgins and Chase and Burrow. Well, Smith, Brown, and Hurts are making $101 million per season. So what that means, if you're the Eagles, that means you better hit home runs on every draft pick. And last year, the presumption was that they did. I mean, at the end of the draft last year, the Eagles were one of everybody's big winners, but then it didn't necessarily pan out on the field that way. If you look at the Chiefs and their successful run, as Field Yates pointed out from ESPN last year, if you look at the Chiefs over a 10-year period, they don't miss in the first 3 rounds of the draft. I think these contracts put an extensive amount of pressure on the Eagles to hit home runs in the first, second, and third rounds constantly, because you are going to have to be simply replacing and reloading with cheap labor the whole time. And if you're the Bengals, if your argument to anybody is, well, guys, we can't do this because we can't pay the 3 of you, well, all 3 of those players, when we talk about Burrow, Chase, and Higgins, can say, up yours, look at Philadelphia.
Yeah, but it's a hard way to live, like you kind of alluded to. You have to be perfect everywhere else. And you can. I mean, hey, the Eagles have pretty much done that. The Eagles have been really, really good in the draft and restocking their shelves with young players and all that kind of stuff. But it's a really narrow runway to land on. If you pay 3 guys like the Bengals, if they were to sign T to a long-term deal, and I don't think they will, all of a sudden you need to do everything else right. And then, hope that none of those 3 guys get hurt either. Like, it's just, I don't like the top heavy approach when it comes to NFL roster building. But again, it just stinks for the Bengals to think that in a year T. Higgins is going to leave and you're going to get a compensatory pick for him, but it's nowhere near the equivalent to what T. Higgins brings on the field.
Well, and again, I haven't looked at the last 2 years, but 2 years ago, I looked at a 10-year period, and I looked at every single team in the league and every single highest paid player at their position. If you take kickers out of it, you take punters out of it, you just look at the starting 22 highest paid players at their position. The only team, again, this was 2 years ago, so I can't tell you about the last 2 years. But over that 10-year period, one player, Rob Gronkowski, was the only one to ever win a Super Bowl in the year that he was the highest paid player at his position. All of that to say that as much as we say you can't pay quarterbacks, which is a stat I don't necessarily believe in, the real numbers are you can't pay anybody, right? And so the Eagles are paying everybody. So the problem is it leaves you no margin for error, as you said earlier, and it means everything has to go perfect. And it also means by nature, because you're relying on more cheap labor, you're going to have depth issues, which means if you have one of those years where injuries hit you, it's going to hit you harder. Like you factor all that stuff in, man, and it's like, I understand when you have great players, you have to pay great players. But I also think that we have to understand as a football society that with that comes leveraged risk. And that's why some organizations constantly are comfortable saying, you know what? We're good. We're going to let you walk. Like we all thought the Chiefs were crazy when they let Tyreek walk. Turns out they were just fine. Organizations have to be very disciplined right now about what they're comfortable paying each position as an overall bucket, not just each player.
Yeah, and the Ravens are a great example. They let guys walk all the time. They just have next man up, and the next man up is usually pretty good for the Baltimore Ravens. They've done this time and again. I wonder with the Eagles, with paying Devonta, part of it being that they came so close to a Super Bowl, that they just have this, we want to keep running it back, and we want to take our shot. We're still in the Super Bowl window, and the frustration of not getting home 2 years ago might lead to some of these decisions. Again, Devontae's a heck of a player. I really like Devonta Smith. It's just hard when you're paying three guys $101 million. It's hard to build a roster. How he's going to do as best he can with it, but it just makes it difficult. But yes, you get this FOMO of, we can't let Devonta Smith walk somewhere else, when maybe at some point your best option is, well, yeah, you can let him walk, and then you just draft his replacement. It's kind of what the Ravens model has been, and other teams have done that too, like you said. So we'll see how it works out, but it's definitely a challenge for the Eagles going forward managing the cap.
All right, so there's another piece of big news, and I feel like you're going to have something to say about this one. The Jets are going back to their 1980s throwbacks full-time. How do we feel? Like, because you and I we've been very staunch in our love of the throwbacks on this show, right? So the Jets going back to the 80s throwbacks. How are we feeling about that? Is that big your no, say yes, yes?
Pretty good. I like it. I like them. I will say, like, I'm not trying to nitpick here, Jets, but that like Vinny Testaverde era Jets look, when they threw it back to the 1960s with the helmet and the Jets in it and the sleeves. I like that era Jets jersey better, but these are sharp, man. Like, brings back memories of Mark Gastineau and Kenny O'Brien and Al Toon on Wisconsin. Great. That looks so much better than what they had. Like, they tried to modernize it. This was like 4 years ago, or 5 years ago, 2019. They tried to like modernize it with the New York on the chest plate and all that. And it's like, and then you go back to the 1980s look, and you're like, yeah, that's what the Jets should be wearing. It looks fantastic. I'm all for it.
All right, let's not gloss over the most important thing here. Your Wisconsin-isms rarely come out, but the way you just said Altoon was amazing. Altoon, like Altoon. That was an
unbelievable player. I know that he's kind of the trivia question because he would have had a Jerry Rice, but concussions ended. If you're a football nerd like me, go back and look at the history. Altoon was having a heck of a career. He tore Sherrod Woodson one day in Purdue, 1982. I don't want to nerd out on Wisconsin stuff, but yes, Altoon, if you're out there, represented Wisconsin well, and he represented those jerseys well. I might have to get a throw. I might have to look for an Altoon 1986 throwback, right? Like that'd be good. There's a sharp look. Like, this is a great look. It's a great look.
I like the way you say tune. Are you a big Family Guy guy, Frank? I should know this about you.
Of course, I love Family Guy.
Right, like there's the ever famous, like, it's like having sex with a girl from Wisconsin, and she goes, oh crap. Like, it's rare that your accent comes out. Like,
rare my accent. I try to get rid of my accent, but sometimes, yes, especially after a few spotted cows, my Wisconsin people know what that's all about.
So the real question is, when's the last time a modernization of a jersey really worked?
No, I've said Fitz a million times. Every team, with the exception of like three, looked better in 1994 than they do now. And some teams look the same, the Bears, the Packers, the Raiders, whatever. But every team who's changed their jersey since 1994 does not look better. The Rams don't look better. Rams should have the Rams were the one that blew it to me because they had the chance. They're like, we're going to redesign it. Everybody thought they were just going back to the Jim Everett yellow and blue, and everybody was excited about it. Then they came out with this whatever they're wearing now, which is fine, but it's like, is this really better than the Eric Dickerson? Like, no, it's not. Like, just go to the classics. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with the Jets saying, you know what, nostalgia sells. People loved our jerseys in the 1980s. We're just going back to that. I applaud the Jets for this. It's a good move to just take the L. To just say, you know what, we tried the modern look, whatever. We looked better in 1985 when we were playing the Browns at Municipal Stadium. Let's just go back to that.
I wouldn't be mad if the entire AFC East this year just all went back to their 80s, 90s look.
Everyone.
Like, let the Dolphins go back.
Of course.
We need the Patriot. We need the Minuteman back. 100%. I'm on record with that. It's one of the best, like, of all the throwbacks. It's one of the best in my mind. And even the Bills. Like, let everybody go back. Let everybody go back to where they were.
Everybody. All yes. Right. We could just talk because we're just going to agree upon it, but everybody out there listening agrees upon this too. There's so many jerseys now that it's just like the Steelers, like that weird font they got. It's like, that's okay, but if it's good enough for Mean Joe Green, it's good enough for TJ Watt right now. Just go back to that. It looked better.
Yeah. By the way, you feel free to tweet us if you can think of a modernization of a jersey that you're like, yeah, that's it. Because I would love it. Like, look, I'll mea culpa my day. I'll eat some crow on it. I just off the top of my head, I can't think of a single one. And every new team, even
the
if
Chargers count? Did the Chargers count? Because that kind of threw back to the old days with the powder blue, but it is better than they looked in 1994. Yeah. Like the junior set, like I love Junior Seau, don't get me wrong, but when they went to Super Bowl in 1994 with those jerseys, 1995, I guess it was 94. They did not look better than they do now. So that's one.
No, but their powder blue is still a throwback, right?
Yeah.
Like it's still a throwback,
right.
That's the hard part of it. I can't think of, and even the new teams that came in, like when the Titans came in and the Jags came, like the Jags, I've railed on their jerseys a bunch on this show, but like you think about the new jerseys, they just get it wrong. But I just want to know who designs this stuff. You know what you need to do? You need to call a bunch of like old guys sitting on the front porch that are yelling about what jerseys used to look like.
Me and you.
And you'll get a bunch.
They need me and you. Me and you design jerseys because we'll just be, it'll take us 5 minutes. We'll be like, no, we're not having these weird colors and odd fonts. We're just going blocky font, straight colors. We're fine. We don't need to mess with this too much. We don't need to go Buccaneers alarm clock jerseys. Just go back to the creamsicles. We're good. Like it was fine.
And the other lesson is appreciate him when he got him, because people forget the creamsicles were openly mocked when they were the jersey.
I will say their jerseys, I think they look better. Like, I know the creamsicles are awesome, and I love them as a throwback, but there's a reason people mock those, I guess. I remember talked to Warren Sapp when they went to the Super Bowl a few years ago, and he was just like, we hated those jerseys, and don't bring them up to me ever again because they're so ugly. But there's a nostalgia involved with that. I do think the Buccaneers jerseys now look better, but they went through the phase of, well, this isn't good enough. Let's go to the alarm clocks. Those stunk. And they're like, well, we won a Super Bowl wearing this. Let's just go back to like the 2002. So even they threw it back, just not all the way to the creamsicles.
Yeah, I think the creamsicles were beautiful. I think the particular logo they used for the Buccaneer was ugly. Like that's where
Bucko
they missed.
Bruce.
Like,
wait, I didn't expect Bucko Bruce to be catching strays.
Yeah, the side of the helmet on the creamsicles was this. And how did you even know it's Bucko Bruce? My God, like
that's who he is. I don't know. How do you not know who it is?
Well, I mean, all I know is like, the ugly guy on the side of the '80s helmets. Like that's what it was. Too whimsical. It was too like drawn for me. Like I don't know. I just needed I like my mascots and my logos to have like a cool cartoony sort of edge to them if they're gonna go that way. That one was a little bit too, it was a little too suck on all corners. Bucko Bruce, you said? Bucko
Bruce,
Bob?
Yes. Bucko Bruce. Yes, I hope I'm right about this. But yes, it's Bucko Bruce, of course.
Okay, you know what? I'm gonna say it's Bucko Bruce because you said
now
it
I'm
was
worried about it. I was second guessing myself. I just made something up right now.
At the end of the day, you said it. That's a life lesson also. I have two things that I genuinely believe in life. You could go into any room and say something, and if you say it with enough confidence, nobody will correct you. And then number two, you can go to any concert in the world. If you get like one of those walkie-talkies, you put it on your hip and you put the little like CB radio thing up here and you just hang some stuff on your hip. Looks like passes. Doesn't matter what it's for. And as you're walking by security, you just go, Roger, I'll be backstage. Give me 2 seconds. Walking through right now. What's your 40? And then you just walk by. Security be like, oh, okay. Like there's, you want to go to the Justin Timberlake concert? Don't buy a ticket. Just wear a bunch of lanyards. Be like, Roger.
I'm rolling up Fitz here. We'll be backstage with JT. Yeah.
We'll be stage right in about 3 minutes. All right. What's your yeah. All right, there we go. There's the information nobody asked for. In the meantime, the information we did, there's a little bit of draft fatigue going on. I think everybody's talking about the same thing. I have some issues with some of the way the conversation is going, but we're going to do something different. We're going to rub the side of the lamp, and we're going to see if the genie pops out some fake win-win trades that we just think would make draft night more exciting. When we come back, we'll do that next. All right, Frank, we're back, and draft fatigue is set in, and I am at the point now where I want to yell at my TV. I was lucky enough to work at the Four Letter Network for a long time. I got some good friends there, right? I was watching Get Up this morning, and I was watching Greeny desperately attempt to make Mel Kiper Jr. say something salacious and click-worthy, and he kept saying, I can't really tell you where somebody's going to be picked. I can only tell you that this is where I rank them. And I also think he's a very good quarterback. It doesn't mean that he's not good. I just happen to like this one better. And all of these normal human takes that usually come from Mel. As I watched everybody else just try and force arguments. Is Jaden Daniels better than Caleb? All of these things that, like, I can't say it loud enough as we're about to make some fake trades. Like, at this point, who cares? Right? Like, at some point, it's like the Bears are first on the clock. The Bears are going to take Caleb. So can we please stop any conversations about who's actually better than Caleb? Because we know who the first pick's going to be.
I will say that it's been more restrained this year because we always go through this. We're bored. We need something else. And this is why this guy is actually going to be the number one pick over the obvious number one pick. And we went through that phase in like December when it was like Drake May is actually going to be the number one pick, not Caleb. And then we got to the combine and it's like, oh no, Caleb's going to be number one. And I'll give there's been some restraint. I haven't heard too many of those conversations of actually Jaden Daniels is going to be number one. And we haven't. I think everybody just kind of has come to the conclusion that Caleb Williams is number one. It's boring to say 58 times in a row, but at least we haven't just usually by this point in the draft season, we're hearing about like, actually JJ McCarthy should be number one overall. Like, no, we all know it's Caleb and we're just kind of debating number two right now.
Well, the draft is only a week and a half away. By the way, Yahoo's going to do a really cool live stream during the first round of the draft. We're also going to have a bunch of video on demand reactions for you quickly throughout the course of the first couple of days of the draft. A lot of really awesome stuff. And sneak peek, I don't know if I'm allowed to say this, but I'm just going to say it. And Stone will have to cut it out if it's not public knowledge yet. But there's going to be a new emoji feature in the app that we're sort of testing out for the draft process. It might become a fixture you'll see more of from Yahoo. But what's cool about it is the minute a pick is made, you'll have a choice of a fire emoji, a cringe emoji, or a emoji. Like, so you have the choice of, I don't know, that's amazing, or I hate it, basically. And you'll be able to immediately vote. You'll be able to see how other fans of that team have voted. You'll be able to see how some of the Yahoo experts have voted. Really cool way to get involved in the draft. So be sure you've got the Yahoo Sports app, and also be sure to keep an eye out on us. We'll be out on YouTube doing the draft thing throughout the course of the first couple of rounds of the draft. So in honor of that, Frank, I thought we could do some fake win-win trades. Now, there's some caveats to this. Number one, we don't actually believe any of these trades are going to be able to be executed. I'm not stupid. You're not stupid. We just look stupid. Number two, this is important. We tried to come up with trades that actually have some value to both sides. So this isn't Madden where you've turned the trade off where it's like they can't circumvent it. And you're like, I'm going to trade Dak for a 7th round pick. Thank you. We're not doing that. We're trying to find comparable value for both sides where it would be a win-win, even if it's a far-fetched win-win. Have I covered everything?
Yes, and please don't tweet at us with like, well, if we did this trade, they'd be $150,000 over salary cap, so you can't do it. Like, it's an exercise. It's fun. We're trying to do something different other than debating whether JJ McCarthy should go number 2 or not.
I'm going to go on one more tirade.
Please.
Is it a tirade? Yeah, I'm going to go on one more tirade. The release of the draft chart is one of the worst things that's happened in modern Twitter X history over the last few years, because now everybody has the trade value chart, and the number of fans that will come in and be like, well, actually, I have put together all the numbers, and according to the trade chart value, this is fine. And you're like, you have found a miracle way for your team to move up from 21 to 3, giving up a bunch of
like
3rd and 4th
7th round picks. Yeah, all right.
Like, this is not going to happen.
All these 7th round picks, it adds up to 480 points. Yeah, I totally, yes, 100% with you. Yes.
I retweeted yesterday Field Yates' tweet that saying, hey, the more I hear about it, the more it becomes clear that the Vikings are going to have to give up more than their 2 first-round picks this year if they want to move up to number 4 or 5 for a quarterback. It looks like 3 first-round picks. And I just watched his mentions blow up all day with, well, that's not what the draft chart says. And it's like, okay, dumbass. Number 1, it's a quarterback. Number 2, there's a lot of people bidding on a quarterback. So if you've ever gone out there and tried to buy something on eBay, more interest means the price goes up. So number 3, nobody's sitting here telling you what it should be. We're all telling you what it could be based on what we're hearing. So if you're going to hit us with the draft chart value, before you press send on it, just take a deep breath and realize I do not give a damn what you think. All right, now that we've gotten that.
Yes, hey, please listen to this after we told you not to complain about any single part of these fake drafts.
Actually, you're right. I'll take it all back. I care more about the clicks than the listens. Just beat us up. All right, so let's start with the Justin Jefferson trade. Remember, he's not present at voluntary workouts. So what do you got for me on this one?
I think that this is the time for the Bills to strike, and let's throw the trade chart out, Fitz, because we don't like the trade chart anymore. Whatever the Bills would have, just make the call to Minnesota and say, what would you want? what do you want for Justin Jefferson? The Vikings are in that position where they're probably going to move up. We'll get to that in a second. Probably going to move up, take a quarterback, and it would be nice to have Justin Jefferson there. But you also have to think ahead. You're going to be paying Justin Jefferson $35 million a year. I mean, if again Devonta makes 25, he's going to make well north of 30. So maybe you say we don't really have our quarterback ready yet. We could use all these assets from the Bills, whereas the Bills, I don't know how you're going to pay Justin Jefferson, but you figure that out later. And right now you say, we just lost Stephon Diggs. We don't have, our receiver room is bad. Like, it's legitimately bad right now. But how many first-round picks do you want? How many second-round picks do you want? Whatever it takes for them to get Justin Jefferson, the Bills pick up the phone, just make the Godfather offer. And the Vikings would have to say, well, you know, we're the fourth best team in our division. We're being honest here. We're not saying this out loud, but we don't have Kirk anymore. The other three teams are really, really good. Maybe this is actually beneficial to our rebuild where the Bills can get right back in that Super Bowl window getting a Justin Jefferson. What do you think? Is this absolutely insane? Probably the answer is yes, because Vikings ain't trading Justin Jefferson. But we at least have to pick up the phone, right?
I mean, we thought that there was no way in hell the Titans were going to trade A.J. Brown, and then he went, right? Like, the Justin Jefferson thing isn't fake to me. So I actually really like this. And the funny thing is, you mentioned Justin Jefferson to the Bills. I really thought about a few different scenarios here, because if you are the Vikings and you're trying to move up for a quarterback, you're trying to move up to 4 or 5 for a quarterback, and all of a sudden, let's just use that 4. All right. If you're sitting in your Arizona picking a 4 and you really love Marvin Harrison Jr., but you can get both first rounds or a first rounder out of, like, get the 11 from Minnesota, and you can get Justin Jefferson with that 11, would you not have to at least think about it? Yes, Marvin Harrison Jr. looks like the best wide receiver we've seen come out since Randy Moss, and he's going to be cheaper labor. But if you're the Cardinals, and bird in the hand, if you can get Justin Jefferson and a first round pick to move up to from the Vikings, to let the Vikings move up to 4, they get their quarterback. You still get the wide receiver you covet, and you're still picking at 11. Same with the Chargers. If you're the Vikings and somehow JJ's sitting there at 5 and you love him, do you trade with the Chargers, who then trade down to 11? They pick up the wide receiver they desperately need with Justin Herbert and Justin Jefferson, and they pick up additional draft equity along with still having a high pick. Like, I think Justin Jefferson being in the conversation, like, if I was another team, I'd at least make the call.
It's a great challenge. Like, I think Justin Jefferson and plus picks is too much, but let's say you pick up the phone if you're the Vikings, you say, Justin Jefferson for the 4th pick. Let's go. Like, Arizona, I'd probably say, sure, let's do that. Yeah, we'll have to pay Justin Jefferson. We're not paying anybody else. We're fine. Because, like you said, bird in hand, like, is Marvin Harrison going to be better than Justin Jefferson? That's a lot to ask, considering Justin Jefferson just set the record for the most receiving yards for any player's first 4 seasons. That would be fascinating to hear that conversation of just a challenge trade. JJ for number 4. What do you do?
You've opened my eyes to something too, because I just looked it up and I keep forgetting, like, Justin Jefferson's 24.
I know.
Like,
I looked that up yesterday when I was writing about him not being at off-season workouts, and I was like, he's not even 25 yet? Is that even possible? Like, it is amazing what he has done before his 25th birthday. He's an unbelievable player, just fantastic. And you know what? At the end of the day, the Vikings are going to pay him, because who else are they paying? And you need something to market to your fans, right? Like, you can't just do that. But yeah, it's interesting to see.
I'd still want a first round pick, though. If I was Arizona, look, Justin Jefferson's great.
Way. That's
you can't give up Justin and a first to move up to 4?
Justin Jefferson and a first just to get Marvin Harrison? Like, no, that's way too much. Way too much. I don't care. Yes, you got to pay Justin Jefferson. I get it. The contract,
no, but you'd be getting a quarterback.
Deal.
You would be moving up to 4, and you would be getting JJ McCarthy. So you're getting a quarterback.
I mean,
you're right. That feels like
with the Cardinal side, but yeah.
That feels like too much. You're right. But also, why would I trade out of that pick when I could have Marvin Harrison much cheaper than Justin Jefferson's going to cost me? Like, that contract for Justin Jefferson has to matter somewhere in this process. Like, if I'm picking a 4 or 5, I'm not just taking Justin Jefferson because I got to pay him. And, like, I got to pay him a ton of money. I don't know, man. You're kind of talking me into
the Cardinals paying. Like, I know Kyler, obviously, but who's second on their salary chart? I would have to look that up, because I can't.
No, you keep stalling. You
Buda
just
Baker,
wax
maybe,
here for a minute, you know?
Yeah, I don't really think the Cardinals are paying anybody else. So if you have the shot at a Justin Jefferson, you don't turn that down. But you don't turn down Marvin Harrison either, because he is going to be absolutely, positively a stud in the NFL. Both guys are unbelievable.
Sweet baby Jesus. Right now they have $28 million in cap space today.
There you go.
The
We've figured out the Cardinals' issues right now.
They
Let's
have
go trade for JJ.
$28 million in cap space. And next year they have $98 million in cap space. Like, the only problem is, what's the wins above replacement for Justin Jefferson versus Marvin Harrison Jr. or Malik Neighbors? I guess it's that you know. It's that you know exactly who you're getting. So you're taking away any of the variable
we all thought
in the draft.
Sammy Watkins was going to be great. We all thought Corey Davis was going to be great. And I can't sit here and tell you I think Marvin Harrison's going to be a bust. You just don't know. You just don't know in the NFL.
Yeah, this is the gambler in both of us, the dabbler in both of us. How much are you willing to mitigate risk? That's a really interesting. Okay, so Justin Jefferson for number 4. What about Justin Jefferson? To me, part of the reason Justin Jefferson at 5 would make sense for the Chargers is because it restocks, but the Chargers, again, salary cap issues is probably why they are where they are. So maybe it doesn't make as much sense there. If you're the Vikings, though, you are desperately trying to move up to 4 or 5. So maybe there is some sort of a move there for the Vikings to 5 with the Chargers, and it still keeps the Chargers ahead of the Raiders and the Broncos in this year's draft pecking order. So they still get their choice of guys above their division rivals.
Yeah, and our second fake trade isn't really so fake. This has to happen where the Vikings move 11 and 23 to 5 to the Chargers and just draft a quarterback. I think JJ is going to be there. We'll see about McCarthy. I honestly don't know where JJ McCarthy's going in the draft right now. I did not put the Vikings at number 4 because I will say this again. On the Arizona Cardinals, I don't mess around with this. I draft Marvin Harrison Jr. I know there's going to be offers. You could get multiple firsts. I don't care. I'm drafting Marvin Harrison Jr. He is a special, special player. So I moved down to 5, and I'm thinking about the Chargers. They need a lot. For as much as we talk about how much talent they have and all that, there's a lot of holes on this roster now, and the number one hole for them is receiver. Offensive line's another one that they talked about wanting to restock offensive line. They could grab a couple picks here. I think it just makes too much sense for everybody, right? Like, Vikings move up, assuming it's not the 4, to number 5. Well, like, why wouldn't the Chargers do this? What, to just sit there and draft Joe Alt? Like, I don't know why they wouldn't move with the Vikings if the Vikings are in the market for a quarterback here.
So what if it takes 3 firsts? You still in on that? Because I genuinely think it's going to take 3 firsts to move up to 4 or 5.
I might give you a little something extra. All right, you get an extra 4th out of me. I don't like it, but whatever. I think 11 and 23 is that's fair to move up to 5. I don't know, but what other offers are they getting? Is some other team willing to give that 3rd first-round pick for the 4th best quarterback off the board? Maybe, but if I'm the Vikings and the price gets that high, I tap out at that point. I fold. I'm sorry, not doing the 3rd one. I'll stay at 11, draft Bo Nix or draft Michael Penix at number 21 or whatever it's going to be, 23. No, not a 3rd. I might give you something a little sweetener, but I'm not giving you a 3rd first.
Can I confess something to you? I'm just going to be honest for a second.
Yeah.
If I'm sitting on air on our live stream and my beloved Raiders give up 3 years of first round draft picks, but it gets them Jaden Daniels.
Oh,
get some Jaden Daniels.
I like Jaden. Yeah, okay. Jaden would be. Yeah,
get some Jaden Daniels.
I understand that.
I'm going to be insufferable. And the next 2 years in the draft, I'm going to be like, I don't even care. If they give up 3 first rounders to get Jaden, it makes a ton of sense. If somebody's giving up 3 first rounders for JJ, that's just a personal preference. I'm out on 3 first rounders for JJ McCarthy. Two would make sense. Either. But also how high you're moving up. Like, if you're trying to take the 2nd or 3rd best quarterback, like if we live in some weird world, like according to some reports, JJ goes number 2, and then all of a sudden the Patriots are on the clock. If that's the case, and then all of a sudden I'm sitting there on our live stream and they say the Raiders have traded up with the New England Patriots at number 3, I am going to say words that will probably get me in trouble with our bosses. Like, I might rip my shirt off. I might rip my pants off. I don't know. So 3 first rounders for Jaden Daniels makes sense. 3 first rounders to move up to 5 to get JJ. I'd be all out on that.
It's expensive. We think back to the Carolina Panthers last year, and I was one of the people who said, hey, you get your quarterback. Nobody cares what you gave up. And then you look what they gave up after the fact. And you're like, ooh, that was a lot. That was a lot to give up to get Bryce Young. Now, if they drafted CJ Stroud, nobody would care. But yes, there's always this air of desperation when, we got to get the quarterback right now, and you end up giving up the world for him. And what if Jaden Daniels is Bryce Young and not CJ Stroud? And it's just a lot. It is too.
Frank, why you gotta say that right?
Three is
Frank, like you're not supposed to say that till after the job. Like now you've doomed the whole thing. It's like the kicker when the announcer's like, "Hey, here's what's going on this." Like I don't know. All right, let's move to the next one. What about? I like this. I like this trade. Brandon Aiyuk. You got a place for Brandon Aiyuk?
Yes, and we already made that trade with the Chargers, right? So we got extra draft capital. We're doing well. Trade number 11, which you got from the Vikings to the San Francisco 49ers for Brandon Aiyuk. The Chargers are in a bad way at receiver. I like Josh Palmer. He's not a number one. They obviously traded Keenan Allen, cut Mike Williams, basically told Justin Herbert, hey, good luck figuring it out. And that's not going to work in the NFL. They need to go get themselves a receiver. I think if the 49ers are really worried about how we're going to pay all these guys, how are we going to pay Brandon, he's not happy. He's unfollowed the 49ers off social media, whatever the heck that means. They're probably doing the math and saying, well, 11, get Brian Thomas or something, restock the shelves a lot cheaper. Whereas the Chargers get that instant impact guy right away that they need. They need a number one for Justin Herbert. And imagine these two guys growing together, Justin Herbert and Brandon Aiyuk. I think this would be awesome, right? Like, I know there's a fake trade, but all of a sudden I'm like, if you do move back, you got extra draft capital, you use that 11 to get Brandon Aiyuk. You would feel really good if you're the Chargers if you could actually pull this off, which you probably won't because the 49ers don't want to trade Brandon Aiyuk when they're Super Bowl favorites. But again, how are you going to pay all these guys?
I mean, in this concept, Minnesota move up to 5 for 11 and 23. That means the Chargers have 11 and 23. They then get Brandon Aiyuk at 11, and that leaves the 49ers the opportunity to go out and get whoever they want at that spot, the best player available. They still have a stacked roster. And then the Chargers will still have the 23rd overall pick in a very deep offensive line draft. We all know they need offensive linemen. I think the Vegas over-under on that was a 10 and a half on offensive linemen selected in the first round. It's expected to be a deep offensive line draft, right? So, this makes a ton of sense. If the Chargers do that, we're all going to be sitting here saying, oh my God, the brilliance of Harbaugh. Because you're right. When you have Herbert, you immediately have to look at it and say, well, whatever wide receiver they come in is going to have much more success because of the quarterback they have. So that would be a staggeringly good trade.
Right?
No notes, no notes on that. Chef's kiss. Like that was the perfect trade by you. And that would be the perfect draft by the Chargers. What about T. Higgins? And we disagree on a placement here. I'll go first on this. I think T. Higgins for number 32. The Chiefs get a wide receiver. Cincinnati gets the 32nd overall pick. The Chiefs avoid dipping back into the well on a development. I know there's a lot of wide receivers out there that are cheaper than T. But do you want every year to spend the first half of the year trying to figure out how a guy works in your system? You immediately bring T in where he plays with Mahomes, and all of a sudden we are just apoplectic over the greatness of the Chiefs. So the Chiefs, 32 straight up, T. Higgins. What do you think?
Obviously sounds awesome. Like I like the Hollywood Brown signing. You add you add T. Higgins to that mix. That's really fun. Here's the problem for you, Fitz. There's absolutely zero chance the Bengals would send T. Higgins to the Kansas City Chiefs. Zero. None. Like they would rather just whatever. We're just gonna, if T. Higgins sits out all year, it's better than him going to the Chiefs. Like we can't beat the Chiefs if T. Higgins is on that team. So I just can't see it happening realistically. Not that any of these are realistic, but I just think the Bengals, they don't even answer the phone for the Chiefs. They're probably just like, no. Reject call. Like Andy Reid, nope. We're not doing that call. So I love the fit, though. That'd be fun.
One of my favorite hangover quotes is "Not you, fat Jesus." I use it all the time in life.
Of course, it's great.
I'm telling you, like the minute that Andy Reid just calls anybody with the Bengals, they're like, "Not you, fat Jesus." And not a chance that's happening.
I like T. Higgins to Arizona. I mean, they have the 27th pick. And why don't they? If Arizona were to double dip, let's get in our fantasy world here, where they have Marvin Harrison at 4, which I still think they should do. They're going to screw this up. They're not going to draft Harrison. They're going to trade down. I'm going to be really, really mad. But imagine Arizona drafts Marvin Harrison at 4, and then they double dip with T. Higgins with the 27th pick, which they got from the Houston Texans last year for the Will Anderson trade, which gives them, it was supposed to be higher than it is, but it is what it is. Again, Arizona's not paying anybody. We've talked about this. Arizona has $90 whatever million in cap room next year. They could pay T. Higgins this contract. If you give me an offense with Marvin Harrison and T. Higgins working with Kyler Murray, that's fun, immediately fun. And why wouldn't at some point, the Bengals have to look in the mirror. I know they want to make one more run with this group, but look in the mirror and say, this is a deep receiver class. 27, we can get a guy. We can get a guy down there. He might not be T. Higgins, but we can get a guy and restart all this. We can't pay T. Higgins anyway. I love this. I think Arizona double dipping at receiver. That's my dream for this draft right here.
That changes the entire way we view the Cardinals too in this situation, because Marvin Harrison and T. Higgins together become so dynamic. As we mentioned earlier, they have the money to spend on it right now and the money for next year. And then on top of all of that, that gives them the, let's say, chance to really see who Kyler is in this offense. Like if Kyler can't win with T. Higgins and Marvin Harrison Jr., then they'll have another quarterback next year. That's pretty simple, right? So it's sort of a win on every platform. That would be a home run, strength on strength on strength, and it would turn the way we perceive their offense to a total different level throughout the course of that. I mean, that's a great job.
And not that this is, it is what it is, but the Arizona Cardinals would go from being that team that's on that mid-afternoon window, and they're playing some game on Fox, and nobody's really paying attention to it, to like, when are the Cardinals on? Because I want to tune in to see this. Like, it would completely change just the perception of the Arizona Cardinals. If you were able to get a Marv, if you were able to get a T. Higgins, like, yes, let's do this. And again, the Bengals, I get it. Like, you don't want to trade T. Higgins, but at some point you got to look in the mirror and say, we can't pay all him and Jamar and Joe. We just need to start over, and there's a deep receiver group, and it might work out like the Diggs Justin Jefferson deal from a few years ago, where the everybody was happy. The Vikings got Justin Jefferson in a draft, huzzah, and the Bills got some great years out of Stephon Diggs. It could be a win-win for everybody here.
Yeah, I think part of what I love about that win-win is that if you're the Bengals, it is, to your point, still a deep wide receiver draft. So you can immediately draft somebody that you think you're going to shape into, and you're doing it while you've got Jamar as your clear-cut number one. So you're not asking that person to be a world beater. You're asking that person to be a great second wide receiver on your team. This is like a truly, I don't say this lightly, I think you've hit a home run. I think this is the best of all of the trades that we've presented so far, because it is truly a win-win. All right, I'm going to give you one that I want you to just hear me out. Before you tell me I've lost my damn mind, okay? I just want you to hear me out, okay? We said earlier, we think, you said earlier, you think, although I think it's going to take 3 first-rounders, 2 first-rounders for the Vikings to move up to 4 or 5 to get their quarterback could make sense. But you're the Vikings. You want to keep Justin Jefferson happy, who's young. And you're the Vikings. And you've got a coach that you believe can go out and make the most out of this roster right now. You have a coach that you believe understands quarterbacks. So you're the Vikings. Before the draft happens next week, do you at least consider, hear me out, Dak Prescott to the Vikings for both the first-round picks, in which case Minnesota takes on all that salary. They'll have to work that out. It only makes about an $11 or $12 million difference to the Cowboys in their cap Ted hit versus what he was going to count anyway. So you figure that out if you're Dallas. And then Dallas mortgages those 24th and 25th, the picks from this year, 11 and 23, and they move their way up to try and get their next quarterback, since they aren't at a spot right now where they have Dak locked in long-term. They actually start in a situation where they're giving this very talented roster in the minds of most an opportunity to help develop their young quarterback as he moves along.
I mean, yes, you are bleeping crazy for one, but that's fine. It actually, I could see it, because here's why. Because the Cowboys have this whole CeeDee Lamb, Micah Parsons thing looming. You got to pay these guys somehow, right? How do you do that? Because you paid Dak too. Ooh, it's really tough. This way you start over at quarterback with the salary. The reason they won't do it is because Dallas believes they're in a Super Bowl window, and it should believe they're in a Super Bowl window. They're a really, really good football team. Whether they can get over the hump or not, we'll have that conversation in one of our episodes in June probably. But can they get over the hump with this group? Maybe not. Maybe you trade, maybe you start over with quarterback, you re-sign all your guys. Minnesota gets a quarterback, so they're not just stuck with Sam Darnold or the 5th quarterback off the board in this draft, trading 5 first-round picks to go up and get J.J. McCarthy or whatever their plan is. It's crazy, but it's never going to happen. But if it did, I'd be like, oh, wow, okay. That actually makes a little bit of sense from each side involved, except for Dallas kind of punting its Super Bowl window a little bit, because a rookie quarterback isn't coming in and winning a Super Bowl probably, but it solves some conundrums for both sides. Let's put it that way.
You are right about that. And I will now push my soapbox up. I will stand on my soapbox and I will say, hear ye, hear ye. In all of sports in the NFL, the most overtold story right now is the death of the Dallas Cowboys this season. The most overreactionary take is that the Cowboys have had the worst offseason in the NFL because, frankly, what we're forgetting is they won a bunch of games last year. There are two separate conversations. Did the Cowboys do anything that makes them more of a Super Bowl contender? No, the answer is they didn't. Does that mean that their entire offseason has been a dumpster fire and they're going to suck next year? No. They won a lot of football games. They believe they can still win a lot of football games. And nobody has shown me yet why suddenly I'm going to look at this Cowboys team and say, well, they're 5-6 games worse this year than they were last year. The Cowboys are still going to be a very good regular season team. And we're still not going to give that any credit when they get to the playoffs because we'll say, yeah, but it hasn't gotten a Super Bowl. That's fine if we want to do that week 1 of the playoffs. But let's not sit here today and get it twisted into some Cowboys suck narrative when the reality of it is the Cowboys were very good last year. They're going to be very good this year. And then we'll just have to wait and see what that means for January.
Yes, I agree with that. I do. There does have to be a conversation within hidden doors with making sure nobody's recording it where the Cowboys whisper, can we win a Super Bowl with Dak? It just is this the guy? Like, and maybe the answer is no. Maybe the answer is he can't get us there. I don't necessarily believe that. I believe that, look, weird things happen in a one-game playoff situation, and sometimes you're going to take bad losses. Sometimes you're going to go on the road and lose to the 49ers. Like that in a competitive game 2 years ago. Like that wasn't the end of the world. The Cowboys fans acted like it was. Getting blown out by the Packers at home kind of was the end of the world. But I think if you're the Cowboys, you do have to have a question of, we're paying Dak all this money, and can he get us to a Super Bowl? Is the answer yes or no? You have to at least ask yourself that. I think the answer is still yes in the right situation. But
like, if they're asking that, though, Frank, think about it, man. Like, they can't franchise him. That's in the contract. They can't trade him. That's in the contract. So if you're a team, let's say like the Raiders, and you don't get the first round draft pick that you don't have it a way to get up to get Jaden Daniels, and you're looking around. Well, if you're the Raiders and you call on draft night and say, hey, we'll give you our first rounder this year and our first rounder next year. We'll take Dak off your hands. We'll make him the highest paid quarterback in the NFL. Who says no?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it would be the answer. Dallas would have to ask a question: who's our starting quarterback week 1? I mean, if you're in a position to get JJ at that point still, or the Vikings have leapfrogged or whatever it is, I think that enters the math. I mean, you need a quarterback. You can't. Is Cooper Rush still around?
That's fair, but what do you do if you're Dallas and you go into this season and you don't do anything about this contract and you're not comfortable making the highest paid player? At what point do you have we have to get something for him? I realize he has a no trade clause, so he could say,
or it could be a Kirk Cousins
no to
moment
absolutely
where you're
everything.
just like, where you're just like, we've kicked the can and kicked the can and kicked the can, and finally it's just over, Kirk. We can't do this, and he signs with the Falcons. That probably is coming someday with Dak, but I mean, you're still in the Super Bowl window. You can't be that drastic yet.
No, and you're probably right. That's a fair, that's a less overreactionary take that, the Vikings certainly just lived, eat, and breathed like the concept of, hey, we love you and we paid you a bunch of money, but it just isn't working for us or for you, so we're going to walk away. That's fair. All right, let's continue to break down a couple more of these. We're both in agreement that the Chiefs could be active this year, but give me a wild scenario with the Chiefs.
I did, that trade chart. I'm going to dust it off again. We just trashed.
I love this. Yeah.
Right? But
by the way, feel free to at us with any trade chart conversations that you want to have, because we're into number crunching.
The math on this actually works out pretty well. Where the Chiefs said 32, their second round pick, which is late, obviously in the second round, and next year's first, all the way up to 7 with the Tennessee Titans, who goodness knows the Tennessee Titans need draft picks, so this works out for them. And then the Chiefs draft Brock Bowers. I love Brock Bowers. I know that people are talking about him sliding, him getting into the teens or whatever. I don't think he gets past the Jets at 10. Okay, right? Like, maybe it depends what the Jets are looking at there, but the Jets drafted Bowers would be an unbelievable pick, I think. So the Chiefs have to get above 10. You go up, you do. Kelsey's still there, but Andy Reid is a genius. The teams have worked 2 tight ends before. By the way, real quick mini rant here, Fitz. Everybody talks about Hernandez and Gronk like that was the first 2 tight end. Like, oh my God, they figured out how to use both tight ends. Go back and watch some film of the 1996 Packers, one of the great Super Bowl champions of all time, with Keith Jackson and Mark Chmura. Like Mike Holmgren kind of figured this out well before Bill Belichick and Josh McDaniels and them did. It is not brand new that the teams could use two tight ends. And if anybody could devise an offense with two dynamic tight ends, it is Andy Reid. You put Kelsey and Bowers on the same field together, and we all know Kelsey. Look, it's not lasting forever with him. Like, it's at some point he's going to just want to retire and tour the world with Taylor Swift, or he's just going to just want to be done with football. You have his ready-made replacement. I love Bowers. He's one of the best tight ends coming out of college I've ever seen. The Titans get their draft picks. The Chiefs get a dynamic offensive weapon to go with Mahomes right away. An obvious Kelsey replacement. Who loses? Who says no to this?
So Bowers talked to him at the Super Bowl, and I asked him right before we taped our interview. I said, you haven't doing anything fun in Vegas? And he said, no, I'm not even here for 14 hours. And I was like, you flew in and out same day? And he said, yeah, the way I look at it is every minute I'm away from training right now could hurt me at the draft. And more importantly, if things go well at the draft, I can come back to Vegas on my terms later in life and do it however I want to do it. And I was like,
impressive.
That's a level of just
that was me and you in Vegas, right? If I remember right, we were like, we're not having any fun in Vegas. We're totally locked into our job. Yeah, I think we had the same conversation.
He said it that way. I said it, shot in a drink, but to each our own. We're saying the same thing, right, Brock? Brock is saying I got to get back in the gym, and I'm saying I got to lift a shot and a drink. Like I got my lift in. Oh, good God. Like my insides turn just thinking of Vegas at this point.
Oh, boy.
Oh, yeah. But here's the only problem I have with your trade. Your trade's garbage because if the Titans move out of 7, then the Titans have hit a level of stupid I didn't know existed. Because I'm pretty sure
they need volume.
They need an offensive line. They need an offensive line, and where they're going to be picking at 7, they're going to have their choice of probably. I mean, I'm going to presume Joe Alt is off the. If Joe Alt is not off the board at 7,
run up the pick.
Again, if Joe Alt's sitting there at 7, let me be very clear. Then at that point, Rand Carthon, the GM of the Titans, should just, again, tear away pants, whap, and then just cartwheels all the way up, drop the card off, and do like jazz hands all the way back because we got Joe Alt. Like, you get that, you fix the whole thing. I have no idea if Rand Carthon even knows what jazz hands are or owns tearaway pants, but that is the only approach. That my fear is sometimes we make this complicated. The Titans' offensive line is garbage, and this is a great offensive line draft. Go out there and get your offensive lineman. But I do like your Brock Bowers moment for the Chiefs. I wonder if they could find the same style of deal to move up with, let's say, a team like Atlanta that may not have as many pressing. Atlanta wants an edge rusher. We all feel like Atlanta's going to go with an edge rusher. The question is, can they get that edge rusher later? I don't know, but man, I feel like I love the concept. And I also think you're right. Like, as much as I would love to think the Jets are going to go offensive line in the draft because I like to keep things simple and just draft fat guys, Bowers at 10 is just too enticing. There's no way he makes it past 10 in my mind.
I keep hearing, like, I was just talking to one of my friends, Rams fan. He's like, what about Bowers? I'm like, no way. Like, how does I don't understand why he is kind of slipping, so to speak. I don't think he is. Like, it might end up that he goes 19 or whatever, and I'm just shocked. But whoever drafts him, if he does get into the late teens, I think that'll be a steal of the draft. I just love it. There's so few good tight ends in the NFL right now. And as we've talked about, when you go back to the Final Four last year, the tight ends from the Final Four teams in the NFL playoffs were Mark Andrews, Travis Kelce, George Kittle, and Sam Laporta. Those are 4 of the top 7 tight ends in the NFL. That's not a coincidence. It's really valuable to have a great tight end. And I don't see why teams would be passing on Bowers, who, again, is as good of a college tight end as I've ever seen. So
now you're telling me that the Raiders are going to take Bowers at 13, combine him with Michael Mayer, and then they'll worry about quarterback at the top of the second. Got it. Perfect. Okay.
Sure, why not?
Speaking of the Falcons,
I got a crazy one here for you.
I like this.
This is where I go off the rails. So the Falcons need a pass rusher. You just said that, right? Cowboys don't know how to pay all their guys. What do they need? They need a really good running back. They got nobody at running back. The Cowboys go to the Falcons and trade Micah Parsons for Bijan Robinson. Now, this is the dumbest trade offer I've ever come up with. The Falcons have to throw in some things, some picks and whatnot, because these two guys, even though they were both top 11 picks or wherever Micah was drafted. They're not equal. We know that. But the Cowboys can't pay all these guys. The Cowboys cannot pay. Look, no team has ever had three $30 million guys on their salary cap at once. They're going to have Dak, CeeDee Lamb, and Micah Parsons at the same time. Like, how do you do that? How does the math even work? I don't think it does. Something's going to have to give here. So the Cowboys say, we need to get something for Micah. We can get 4 years of Bijan Robinson, who played right down the road at University of Texas. I haven't given up on Bijan Robinson being an awesome NFL player once Arthur Smith is not trying to screw him up. I think Bijan's awesome. I think he adds a ton to their offense. Micah Parsons gives the Falcons that edge rusher they desperately need. It's not going to happen, but how crazy on a scale of 1 to 10 am I here?
8. No, I think here's the thing. It works in a lot of ways because you're right. It does address strengths. It gives strengths to weaknesses for both teams. The hardest part of Bijan is that I'm with you. I still think Bijan could be incredible. So if you're the Falcons,
I think he'd be a top 5 back in the NFL. He's that good.
And you just invested all that money in Kirk. You got some offensive weapons
Tyler
for him.
Algier. You're fine. Like Tyler Algier is good. Like he's not great. Like I don't think anybody's going to be putting a gold jacket on Tyler Algier, but there's a reason the Falcons should never have drafted Bijan in the first place. That's because Tyler Algier is a pretty good player. Like he's still got a couple of years left on his rookie deal. I don't. It is a new regime. You admit the mistake. We shouldn't have drafted a running back. That was dumb. We sent him to the Cowboys and some picks, whatever, and this gets done, and everybody's happy.
Like it's rare that a trade like that makes Vegas move. I really feel like Micah to the Falcons makes their win total move. Like it's that. Oh yeah, it's that big of a deal. It's
it would not make the Cowboys win total move, and I get that. But it's more for me. It's more. I'm looking at the Cowboys saying, and I think the Cowboys are saying this. How do we pay all these guys? We need to pay CeeDee Lamb, and we talked about how much Justin Jefferson's going to get paid. CeeDee Lamb's going to make if Justin Jefferson makes $34 million, CeeDee's going to make $33. Like they're basically the same guy. Like they're both elite number ones. And Micah is going to make that, Nick Bosa just made $34 million a year. He's going to be making at least 34. He's probably in the 35, 36 range if Nick Bosa's at 34. How do you pay all these guys? Something's got to give. You can't pay all three of these guys.
Inside coverage, I asked a couple of weeks ago, I asked C-Rob and Jory, what's the value on Dak on the open market if he hits it? And we came to the mid 50s, like somebody and before anybody just throws their milk at the speakers and says up yours. I want to remind you, it only takes one. It takes one owner desperate for a quarterback. And
look what Kirk got paid coming off an Achilles.
I mean, and Dak got his last mega contract coming off of an injury too, right? I honestly believe that if Dak hits the open market this coming off season, a team like the Broncos, if they're not able to address it in the draft, a team like the Raiders, if you're Mark Davis and you've sat here and you have waited and waited and waited for a quarterback, and now you can get a guy that's been an MVP candidate. Okay, you got to give up $60 million. Who cares? Like you got to have some to compete. So it only takes one owner willing to do that. So all of a sudden, that's who the Cowboys would be competing against. So to your point, stack it up. You got 30 or 35 for Micah. You got 30 or 35 for CeeDee. If you're already at 60, you could be looking at 50, 55, 60 for Dak in that process. You're talking about $120 million just allocated. Now, I know they can shift some of that around and they'll make the salary cap cute, but that's a killer. That is absolutely, there is nothing the Cowboys can do there in my mind. So I actually think that in that sense, this one makes a ton of sense. And you're right, Algier can step in. Plus, I'm not going to say it's a deep running back draft. It's not, but there are guys like Estime. No, but Audric Estime is somebody that I think people are sleeping on out of Notre Dame. And he'll be available probably third round, right? So like in the third round, you can bolster that room a little bit if you want to, cheap labor and see what you got there, right? So if you're the Falcons, you're more comfortable doing that than if you're the Cowboys, because if you're the Cowboys, you got nothing in that running back room you can rely on.
Yep, I agree. They got to do something to running back. I don't know what it's going to be, but they need to. This isn't going to happen. I mean, clearly we're kind of messing around here, but if the Cowboys don't come out of this draft with a here's our day one starter type of guy, like I don't know what they do at running back. They really got nothing right now there.
Yeah, they have to come out. I think the Cowboys have to come out of this draft with a couple of offensive linemen, and they need to come out of this draft with the starting running back, and that's bare bones minimum for them. However, they get that accomplished. All right. And by the way, feel free to tweet us at Yahoo Schwab, at Jason Fitz, to give us some of your, if you have any good trade concepts out there. Again, trying to make them somewhat reasonable, but hit us. Like, I always love some creative ideas. In the meantime, Before we get out of here, as we've been doing every week, the snake draft of the week. And we decided that in honor of the arguments that are absolutely asinine about quarterbacks and who should be drafted where and all of these things people are yelling at, we decided we would do a snake draft with the number 1 overall picks in the NFL draft all time. So all time being the modern Super Bowl era, which Frank knew right off the top of his head was 1966. I feel like that's a little bit like Frank knowing, Bucko Bruce,
man. Come on. Like,
I mean,
I'm going to send you a shirt. You're going to be wearing like a Bucko Bruce shirt next show.
If it's creamsicle, I'll wear that thing all day long, though. Like, because I do like.
Right?
Did you eat creamsicles as a kid?
A little bit.
I still like creamsicles as an adult.
Really?
They make sugar-free ones.
You had like 48 pieces of sushi last night, too. Like, we haven't talked about this.
Look, you're right. I sat down at this place. Look, we'll get to the snake draft in a second. Calm your britches. I went to the sushi table, right? Like the little bar area.
Yeah, the bar.
I sit down, and of course, I order a Diet Coke. And I'm trying this new thing, like with my fitness regimen right now. I've sort of given up some alcohol for a while. So I just order a Diet Coke. And so then she walks up a minute later, hadn't given me a menu, and was like, "Do you know what you want?" And I'm like, "No, I need to see the menu if you don't mind." So she begrudgingly sets it down. So there was shock and awe on the faces of the sashimi chefs or the sushi chefs in front of me when I just looked up and I was like, "Yeah, this deluxe sashimi platter, I'm going to have it. Just no octopus. I don't like octopus."
This is for like 4 people, right? Like this is like the deluxe
24
platter.
pieces is like normal for me. Like that's it's just the sashimi. There's no rice with it. Like I get a little cup of side rice, but it's just raw fish. Pounding protein here, buddy. Like I'm getting yolk.
Sure.
So I'm pounding my protein, and I'm literally looking at these 2 chefs, and they're speaking to each other in Japanese. I can't understand any of it, and they're laughing, and I'm like, I can't tell if they're laughing at me or they're. And so I finish all 24 pieces, and in an astounding amount of time, I was hungry. And so next thing you know, I hear this, boom, and it's a plate in front of me, and he's like, "You looked hungry. I thought you might want some more." And I was like, yeah, and it was all the salmon and tuna. It was all the good goods. It was 10 more pieces. So I ate the 10 more pieces, which has me up to 34. And then next thing you know, he was like, "Compliments." And he set it down. And it was a spicy crab mango avocado piece that was like, It was a roll. Oh, man, I don't usually go roll, but I don't like all the sauces and everything because like that's extra calories I don't need. Man, I made it rain on that sushi place. Like, look, I once went to an all-you-can-eat sashimi place that had the little plates in L.A., and they actually asked me to leave. So I'm just letting you know, I can house some sushi. I can house some sashimi. All right. In the meantime, let's get back to the snake draft. So we're looking just at top overall picks in the NFL draft in the modern Super Bowl era. Frank, do you want to go first or second?
I believe since I destroyed you last week with the top championship games of all time, I will concede the first pick to you this week. I had the first pick last week, then you screwed up the second, third pick. So
yeah, I did screw up the second and third picks.
Only fair did I give you the first pick.
So I'm going to use a little bit of recency bias. I'm going to forget about all the old players for a minute, and I'm going to go with the player that I think we can all argue all day long, but top 2 quarterback in the history of the NFL. I will go with Peyton Manning as the best number 1 overall pick. It was close for me. But I will give that to Peyton Manning. Super Bowls with multiple organizations and changed the way football was viewed in the entire state of Indiana. We forget sometimes Indiana's a basketball state that was really indifferent to the Colts for many years. Peyton Manning changed that. Also, that's just the cultural phenomenon he's become, the way he's impacted the game, the way he's impacted society. Peyton Manning with the first overall pick.
Yeah, we played that whole game we talked about before where it was like Ryan Leaf maybe is the best player. No, Peyton Manning lived up to the hype. That's a great pick by the Colts, great pick by you. I'm going to also stay in the quarterback realm here. Go with John Elway. It might not have worked out.
Second.
Yeah, it might not have worked out so well for the Baltimore Colts, but it worked out great for the Denver Broncos, who traded for John Elway right after the draft when he refused to play for the Colts, threatened to go play baseball with the Yankees. It worked out okay at Denver. You talk about a guy who, I don't know if he saved the franchise here, but he basically embodied the franchise. He is Mr. Bronco. Later won a Super Bowl as a general manager. People like to dunk on Elway for how bad. No, he built the Super Bowl champion here as a general manager too. So just an absolute home run John Elway was as a first pick. Another guy who was hyped at every single turn and lived up to it. John Elway, just one of my favorite quarterbacks of all time. I absolutely love him. With my second number 1 overall pick of all time, I'll go with Bruce Smith. I mean, you need a pass rusher, right? And there was nobody better than Bruce, except maybe Reggie in that era. Bruce Smith, an unbelievable player for the Buffalo Bills, kind of didn't really know. He wasn't the guy. He wasn't like Myles Garrett, right? He wasn't like, oh my God, this guy's going to revolutionize the NFL. But he was a first pick out of Virginia Tech and just had an unbelievable career, all-time leading sack leader in NFL history. Bruce Smith, I'm going Elway and Bruce Smith, and man, I feel pretty good about that turn. I think I did pretty well there.
No, you did great on that. I thought that you would end up getting quarterback obsessed and not get Bruce in there. So for my next pick, I will go very safe. I would go Troy Aikman. You win as many Super Bowls as he did. You do what he did with the Cowboys. That's going to make you the next one. I'm going to be very biased with my third pick, but also just greatness. I don't care about how long he played. I don't care. Again, you just want to talk about anybody that goes back. Go back on YouTube if you didn't. There was an era of my life where all I had to do was sit back and watch Bo Jackson get the football, and it was a delight. Now, it wasn't a delight for who he was drafted by, and there was obviously it's a short career of my beloved Raiders, but when you want to talk about just inability to ever chase him down, as much as I thought about taking Myles Garrett here, even though that's a very recent pick, I will be completely biased, and I will take Bo Jackson because we all know that if Bo had stayed healthy, he would have ended up being one of the all-time greats.
I mean, how do you argue with that, right? Bo Jackson, it is unbelievable. He had that path. He's the weirdest number one overall pick of all time because Buccaneers and, screwing up his eligibility at Auburn and that whole story. So is it back on me? Did you make two?
Yeah, I went Aikman and Bo.
Aikman,
so my final poll is Manning, Aikman, Bo.
And we did joke before the show about is O.J. Simpson eligible for this pick? So I will pass on O.J. because we all know running backs are devalued. I'm going to go with Orlando Pace. I think that I remember when Orlando Pace came out of college. I was, Wisconsin guy, obviously, so paid a lot of attention to Big Ten football. And Orlando Pace was just, he invented, the term pancake was never popular before Orlando Pace. And then we found out all about it and watched the highlights of him just mauling guys. He was one of the rare tackles to go number one. And I don't think the Rams regretted that for a second. Hall of Famer, big part of that greatest show on turf. The one that never gets talked about, right? With Falk and Warner and Bruce and Holt. Well, they had one of the greatest offensive tackles of all time, too. Orlando Pace, you don't think when you draft an offensive tackle first, oh, okay, well, that's fine, I guess. It's not really that exciting. But Orlando Pace was a big part of what the Rams did for many years, big part of the Super Bowl run. I'll go with Orlando Pace over OJ as my last number one overall pick of all time.
I think there is a interesting exercise here. Maybe we'll do it next week. I would implore everybody, go back and look at the list of number one overall picks in history and ask yourself how many of them are that great in the last 15 years. There have been more hits, or there have been more misses than hits in the last since Peyton was drafted. So we might look at that next week for all the reminders of Caleb Williams going to save a franchise. It takes more than just being drafted.
I think we got our idea. Worst.
There we go. All right, I'm back Thursday.
We'll get on the Raiders then with the worst number one overall picks, I think. I hope I have the first pick next week. Do I? Okay. Anyway. Sorry, Fitz. Sorry.
Oh, that's a good exercise next week. The worst drafting teams of the last 10 years.
We have to excuse you. We're just going to have to let you go cry in a corner for 10 minutes or something.
Maybe I'll be back on the sauce by then. It'll help. I'm back Thursday. Inside Coverage, C-Rob and Jory. You can check us out every single week and follow us on Twitter, as we mentioned. Also, Stone at SJ Rochelle, our producer behind the glass. Get out there and give him a follow too. Leave us that 5-star review too. Let us know what you think of the show. Rate, subscribe, tell your friends, family, enemies, tell everybody. And don't forget, Yahoo's going to have you covered during the NFL draft too. We'll have more details for you next week. We will see you next Monday.